Bhadram karne vishnunuyama devaha Bhadram pashye makshabhirya jatraha Sthirairangai sastanubihi Vyashema devahitan yadayuhu Om Shanti 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 Om. O gods, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. O ye adorable ones, may we see with our ears, with our eyes, what is auspicious. May we sing praises to ye and enjoy with strong limbs and body the life allotted to us by the gods. Om, peace, peace, peace. Anoraniyam mahato mahiyam atmasya chantor nihito guhayam. The self is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest dwells in the hearts of all creatures. The self, the capital self, is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest dwells in the hearts of all creatures. One day I realized I was talking with one of my monastic brothers, and I heard myself constantly saying this: you have to do it with your heart. It has to come from your heart. So then I said, what is this heart? What do we mean by this heart that is so natural to us, at the same time so mysterious? I'm pretty sure it's not just me. We all use this word, your heart. So I decided to analyze this a little bit. We hear this message again and again in the Upanishads, and we go, sure, the Lord, the inner self, capital self, the Atman, we call it in Sanskrit, dwells in the heart of all creatures. But do we really understand this? What do we do about this? This sloka, or verse, coming from the Katha Upanishad, does not end there. The second part goes, Tamah kratu pashyati vita shoko dhatum prasadaan mahimanam. The desireless one, sees that glory of the self through the serenity of the organs, and thereby becomes free of sorrow. The desireless one sees that glory of the self through the serenity of the organs, and thereby becomes free of sorrow. Unless the mind and the senses are restrained from their ways and made tranquil, the self, the capital self, cannot be fully experienced or manifested. Therefore, there is a necessity of keeping the mind and senses perfectly tranquil for attaining self-realization. There is necessity of keeping the mind and senses perfectly tranquil for attaining self-realization. Dear all, good morning everyone, welcome. My name is Swami Dhyanayogananda, and today we'll be analyzing our inner life. Is there such a thing as inner life? What do you think? What about our outer life? Do we have two lives? Sometimes. So there is a goal here. We will try to understand the need to regain that inner strength so that we can get back to ourselves, our inner self. Because our primary duty expresses the determination to discover insights into life, to penetrate into the notion of self-existence and realize the joy of freedom. There is one aspect of life which is known to all of us, our everyday life, which we are conscious of all that we do. And this aspect may be called the outer life. But there is another aspect, the life that goes within us. You have a life that everyone else sees. And then you have a life that is very private to you, that only you and what we call God see. We call it the inner life, with music and everything. There is one aspect of life which is known to us, our everyday life in which we are conscious of all that we do, and this aspect, we might call it the outer life. But there is another aspect, the life that goes within us. You have a life that everybody else sees, and then you have a life that is very private to you, that only you and what we call God see. We call it the inner life. Although other people may see sometimes the results of our inner life, they don't actually see it unless we let go. The truth is that many don't even know what is going on in their inner life. The truth is that many don't even know what is going on in their inner life because they don't even pay attention, or they don't really think that it matters. We got used to live like zombies, without knowing who we are, without knowing what we want, without knowing the direction, without knowing the goal of our human life. Is it true? Very much, unfortunately. We cling so much to our outer way of living that it has become instinctive, mechanical. Our outer life is our reputation with people, is what we want to show to the world, is how we want to look. It's the way we dress, your preferences, your colors, your perfume, your show. But when it comes to our inner life, I like to make a differentiation. Our inner life could be said to be our thoughts, our imagination, our emotions, our fantasies that occupy our mind when we are alone with ourselves. One aspect of our inner life could be said to be our thoughts, our imagination, our emotions, our fantasies that occupy our mind when we are alone with ourselves. Our inner life could be said to be that different you when you are away from the distracting noises and preoccupations of the outer world, and there are no pressures, no pretensions, and no need to wear a mask to impress others. There is one aspect of our inner life where we entertain all sorts of thoughts according to our desires, our likes, and our imagination. But there is another aspect of our inner life which is the most important, and the most important aspect of it. Essentially, it is only one type of life that we need to get. Essentially, it is only one type of life that we need to get. We usually say to others when we get upset, just get a life, right? So what do we mean by that? Get a life. We mean that we need to start living to its fullest and a more interesting existence. But we can only do that when we start accepting who we really are and when we find that center in our heart. By our heart, I mean that source of peace, the dwelling place of the soul. Your inner self is who you really are on the inside. This is the Atman, the capital Self, pure consciousness, free and uncontrollable, surpassing all outer attention, transcending inner awareness, and conveying both through the experience of oneness. Surpassing all outer attention and transcending inner awareness. That's who you are. And conveying both through the experience of oneness. Beyond thought, unimaginable, beyond body, untouchable, beyond senses, ineffable, beyond the end of evolution, beyond you and I, and our private oneness. The Upanishads firmly declare that our mind is rooted in our heart. When our heart rests, cradled in a calm, abiding presence, our mind settles into a relaxed stillness. This is what the rishis say, the seers of the truth of the Upanishads. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad says, his form does not stand within the range of the senses. No one perceives him with the eye. Those who know him through the faculty of intuition, as thus seated in their heart, become immortal. Those who know him through the faculty of intuition, as thus seated in their heart, become immortal. Now you may say, well, Swami, I don't know that faculty. I don't think I have it. Yes, you do. You are with yourselves all the time. You are with you all the time. It is with you. The supersensuous way of knowing is what we call intuition. This implies that intuition is the heightened power of cognition, born of the refinement and concentration of all the faculties of the mind, feeling, thought, and will. This implies that intuition is the heightened power of cognition, born of the refinement and concentration of all the faculties of the mind, feeling, thought, and will. As you can see, knowing your inner self requires a high level of introspection, awareness, and alertness. Is not what you have been told by others, but what you have discovered for yourself by this power of your intuition. This is what I'm trying to appeal here. So let us relax and enjoy this. There is a fact. We can't get there unless, in the words of the Upanishads, the knots of the heart are loosened. The knots of the heart is a phrase that occurs frequently in the Upanishads. What do we mean by this? By loosening the knots of the heart, it stands by ignorance, obsessed desire, hankering, clinging to passions that beget attachment and frustration. In other words, our selfish motives. These are the knots that constitute the basis of ignorance, and when they are cut, ignorance is dispelled and the Atman, the capital Self, is free from obstructions. In other words, in the experience of the Atman, of who you are, is involved not only this intuition born of the refinement and concentration of the mind, but all of them purified by an ethical life. This ethical life and this power of concentration called intuition, unified into a form of cognition, will give us an unerring and unshakable certainty. It's not easy, but it is possible. Coming back to these two aspects of our inner life, if our outer life is a reputation with people, our inner life is the reputation with our innermost being, the self, what we call God. Now, the concept of God is a fundamental element in the human constitution. In Vedanta, we call it Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, existence absolute. Chit, knowledge, consciousness, awareness, absolute. And Ananda, bliss, absolute. And that is the highest concept of God possible to our mind. There is the me that I project to the outside in the way I walk, in the way I talk, in the way I dress. Women put on some makeup and jewelry. But there is something that goes on inside that nobody really knows. Whether our thoughts and words match our actions, our deeper feelings, that is important. Whether our thoughts and words match our actions. What goes on inside isn't ever the same as what goes on outside. Is it true? What goes on inside isn't ever the same as what goes on outside. Do we want to be hypocrites? To pretend a show, to put on a show before everyone? My dear friends, there is a witness very, very close to us, sitting within us, that wants to be free. And struggles to be, just be. Some inner voice tells us that we are free. But if we attempt to realize that freedom, to make it manifest, we find the difficulties almost insuperable. We all know this. Yet, in spite of all that, it insists. That witness, that inner voice insists on asserting itself inwardly. I am free. I am free. Our inner life wants to be transparent. Our inner life wants to match our outer life. Ourselves, who we are, wants to express itself, wants to manifest to its fullest. Our inner life wants to be transparent. Our inner life wants to match our outer life. Ourselves, who we are, wants to express itself, wants to manifest to its fullest. All human life, all nature, therefore, is struggling to attain to freedom. The sun is moving towards that goal, so is the earth, encircling round the sun. So is the moon, encircling round the earth. To that goal, the planet is moving and the air is blowing. Everything is struggling towards that. The saint is going towards that voice. He can't help it. It is no glory to him. So is the sinner. The charitable man is going straight towards that voice and cannot be hindered. The miser is also going towards the same destination. The greatest worker of good hears the same voice within, and he cannot resist it. He must go towards the voice. So with the most errant idler. One stumbles more than another, and him who stumbles more, we call him bad. And him who stumbles less, we call him good. Good and bad are never two different things. They are one and the same. The difference is not one of kind, but of degree. You are the infinite. The universal is in you. Control yourself and listen to the voice of your true self. Control yourself and listen to the voice of your true self. Give yourselves a moment of introspection. Control yourself and listen to your inner voice. Where am I going? What do I want to be? Am I fulfilled? What am I lacking? We should ask ourselves, who am I? What is my life purpose? Why am I here? What do I want to be? What are my values? What kind of values do I want to carry in my life? What are our motivations in my life? What do I believe in? By sharing this with all of you, I'd like to encourage you to live the life you deserve. We need to start living it. It should not be something simply you believe in. It should be yours. It should become real in this very life. I remember there was a spiritual teacher who was taking questions from the audience, and a Swami, sometimes we are famous for being argumentative, and so grabbed the mic and put this question to him. How many ways of realizing God are out there? And this teacher said, you see, as many people are there sitting in the audience, as many ways to realize that inner self. And then, surprisingly, this sadhu started arguing with him. Well, but the Upanishads say, our scriptures say, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you know, that is not something you live. That is something you believe in. So that's the thing. What are we doing with ourselves? It's not enough to believe. You have to transform. We have to transform ourselves so that our belief and our life become one. That's why to conquer ourselves is so hard, because we have to turn to ourselves and start exploring, start inquiring, start facing the brood, in the words of Swami Vivekananda. You may all know that anecdote or incident in Swami Vivekananda's life. One day he was visiting Varanasi, and there is a Durga temple, and there is a huge pond. He was just walking, and suddenly he started being chased by monkeys. Lots of monkeys, very wild. And they started running towards him, behind him. And he didn't know what to do, so he started running, because they are huge. They are called Hanuman monkeys. And as he was running, he heard someone saying, face the brood, face the brood. So when he heard that, he describes, right, how he felt. And he turned back and he faced all the monkeys, and they all ran away. Such is our case. We should face the brood. Mm-hmm. We should try to see and analyze our limitations and work them out. Our main source of strength is not outside, it's within us. Our main why is the need to be free. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. It is spending time with yourself, a life of self-scrutiny. We need to learn how to articulate the movements of our inner life so that we can help ourselves by ourselves. The inner life is a choice in where we center our attention. Inner life is a choice in where we center our attention. At the same time, the process of discovery never ends. It's a lifelong journey. A very painful journey sometimes, because we keep falling in the snares of our fundamental enemy. Who is our enemy? Ourselves. Our ego, our me, mine, myself. The condition of taking the paths of the inner life is that one should first be or feel light-weighted. This is indeed a very heavy load, a lot of a struggle. It's like a backpack when you go on camping or hiking. In the beginning, there is willingness. After some time, it turns really heavy. You just need a break of yourself. You simply get tired of the battle going inside you. The battle goes inside the people, between two walls, inside us all. One is evil, anger, hatred, violence, confusion, selfishness. And the other is good, represented by self-control, patience, contentment, forgiveness, unselfishness. Which of these walls win, Grandma? A child asked his grandmother, which of these walls wins? The one you feed, answered his grandmother. Our thoughts, our attitudes towards our problems. As you can see, all that goes on inside us is of much more importance of the things going around us. How long can we pretend to be someone that is not flowing as the real us? How long can we pretend to be someone that is not flowing as the real us? There is a goal. What is the goal? The goal is to make our outer life and our inner life one. But before that, we need to get an inner life. And I need to get an AC because I'm melting here. So, if we have never given much thought about, if you have never given much thought about your inner life, it is likely that you have become defined a lot by your identities. It is common for people to see themselves as a certain role, such as a friend, a partner, employee, a son, a daughter. Some spend their whole lives building themselves around such identities. To make contact with your inner self is the first step of living a conscious life of your own making. The inner life deals with your inner voice, your relationship with God. That is the most important relationship you have to nurture. The inner life is where your heart is. What is your heart? The inner life allows to unfold the language of the heart. Two people may live together for 25 years or 40 or 50 and may still not be able to understand one another. Yet, the inner life would enable them to understand one another in one moment. The language of the heart speaks louder than words. The language of the heart speaks louder than words. If the ears of the heart were opened to hear that language, outer words would not be necessary. If the ears of the heart were open to hear that language, outer words wouldn't be necessary. Some people may be criticized as singers for not having a perfect voice. But boy, when they sing, they are Grammys. There is a famous singer, Adele, a British singer. She's been criticized for not having the perfect voice. But when she sings, therefore I'm asking, are you singing from your heart or from your mind? Inner life has been called a chamber of divine light in one's heart. The door remains closed until an effort is made to open it, until we are determined to make an effort to go inside it. Everything becomes spiritual once this door of the chamber of the heart is open. Our inner life, my dear friends, is what we call our spiritual life. By descending into the safety of a nurturing heart, we regain confidence in our inner voice, returning into silence. The absence of word and thought realigns each of us with a calm, abiding presence. In meditative silence, we hear our inner calling, find the light of wisdom shining in our minds, and learn to distinguish genuine insight from merely mental ideation. If a man is a musician, then his music is celestial. If she is a poet, then her poetry is spiritual. If he is an artist, then his art is a spiritual work. Whatever he or she may do in life, that divine spirit manifests. He need not be a religious person. He need not be a philosopher. He need not be a mystic. It is simply that what was hidden in him and thereby was keeping his life incomplete begins to manifest to view, and that makes his life perfect. That enables a man to express life in its fullest and fullness. For many of us, the creative, transformational power of our imagination has atrophied through being degraded. For many of us, the creative, transformational power of our imagination has atrophied through being degraded, cast aside, and replaced by an overly excessive, rational, materialistic intellect. If we have been trained to look outside ourselves for recognition and to listen to external voices for validation, we can now return our attention to an inward path, retrain our concentration to experience this present moment, and regain our native ability to use all of our senses on behalf of stimulating a numbed soul. How are the meditative souls awake? How do they experience the inner life? The first condition that man should value the inner life more than anything else in this world, more than wealth, more than power, position, rank, or anything else, It does not mean that in this world he should not pursue the things he needs. It means he should value most something which is really worthwhile. The second condition is, when one begins to value something, one thinks it's worthwhile giving time to it. When one begins to value something, one thinks it is worthwhile giving time to it. So if a person gives his precious time to what he considers most worthwhile, more so than anything else in the world, then that is certainly the next step towards the inner life. Now we should look within us. Do we really love ourselves? Are we really paying attention to this? To our inner life? Do we really want to match our outer and inner life? Because the first condition is that we have to give value to it. And the second condition is we have to give time. Our whole spiritual transformation brings us to the point where we realize that in our own being, we are enough. Support your life by never forgetting the most important and fundamental relationship in your life. What is your most fundamental relationship? Not the one you have with your friend, which is good. The one you have with yourself. If you don't have that relationship, how can you think of having or dealing with others? Transparently. Are you following me? The relationship with your most inner being, the source of all independent, permanent, and eternal happiness. You are of the essence of Ananda, bliss, eternal joy. Your relationship with the Lord is the only permanent relationship you can ever have. Yes, I'm calling the Lord yourself, your capital self. That is the most important relationship we have. Live in God. It is in Him, through Him, for Him. The moment you lose sight of that fundamental relationship with God, your life becomes directionless and miserable. You are lost. I don't mean to criticize, but did you get the chance to walk on Hollywood Boulevard? Sometimes it scares me a little bit. People look lost. The third condition is that the condition of his mind should be relieved of that pressure which is always in a person's heart when he thinks that he has not done what he ought to have done towards his fellow men, called the father, a mother, child, husband, wife, brother, friend. A person may give his valuable time to contemplation, to spiritual life, yet at the same time his mind is disturbed. His heart is not at rest, for he feels he has not done his duty. He has not done what he had to. Do we not often notice the disturbing presence of people who have not got that tranquility, that peace, that calmness? even though they call themselves spiritual. The concept of dharma is that which supports the existence of a thing. Those virtues, values, attitudes, and principles which keep us together is what we call dharma. Those virtues, values, attitudes, and principles which keep us together is dharma. Says the Muktida Upanishad, the stream of tendencies flowing through good and evil channels is to be directed to self-effort along the good path. The stream of tendencies flowing through good and evil channels is to be directed to self-effort along the good path. We have to cultivate the seeds of dharma, that which is good, which is right, within our heart. A mystic is often called a seer. And a great yogi has said, in order to see what is before you, you must first see within yourself. The sages who have realized the inner life have realized it. The sages who have realized the inner life have realized it by contemplative means. But one can be in the midst of the world and yet stand above the world. The only way to stand above the world is by the discovery of the inner life. We should stop identifying ourselves with the superficial world. Let us stop this instinctive clinging. Let us stop this instinctive clinging to what is dependent, impermanent, and ephemeral. Be free. The first inkling of life on its higher level is in seeing this struggle within us to break the bond of nature and to be free. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom, oh freedom is the song of the soul. Then we will play like the actor who comes upon the stage and plays the part of a beggar. Contrast him with the actual beggar walking in the streets. The scene is perhaps the same in both cases. The words are perhaps the same, but yet, what difference? The one enjoys his beggary, while the other is suffering misery from it. And what makes this difference? The one is free and the other is bound. The actor knows his beggary is not true, but he has assumed it for play. The actor knows his beggary is not true, but that he has assumed it for play, while the real beggar thinks that it is his too familiar state, and that he has to bear with it, whether he wills it or not. Do you see the difference? On one hand, we have a real beggar, assuming that that's his fate. On the other hand, we have an actor who is just simply playing the role of a beggar. But there is a difference there. The actor is able to enjoy his play, his role, whereas the other suffers it. Which one do we pick? Inner life is a life from the soul, Space is in the soul, not the soul in space. As the soul, we are not in time and space. All time and space are within the soul. All time and space are within the soul. The center of that soul is in our heart, and we know when we act from that center. We all know. We know when we think and talk from that center. Let our words, thoughts, and deeds be one. Let our words, thoughts, and deeds be one. Let us stop being beggars. Not tomorrow, but now, in the eternal now. Let's start enjoying our role in this life as life itself, but let us not be of it. The Mundaka Upanishad says, Vidyate hridayagrantihi, chithyante sarvasamshayaha, kshiyante chasya karmani, tasmin drishte paravare. When that self is realized in both high and low, in both cause and effect, in good and bad, in superior and inferior, the knots of the heart are loosened. The knots of the heart are loosened. Doubts are dispelled and karmas exhausted. When that self is realized in both high and low, in both cause and effect, in good and bad, in superior and inferior, the knots of the heart are loosened. Doubts are dispelled and karmas exhausted. Give up searching for God in the outer world of sense and matter, and turn your attention to the inner world. Is there an inner world? What is it? The Upanishad says it is the Atman. It is the self. It is the only thing an individual can be sure of. If he knows himself, he can know the universe, and not otherwise. The same question was asked in the beginning of time, even in the Rig Veda, in another form. Who or what existed from the beginning? That question was gradually solved by the Vedanta philosophy. The Atman existed. That is to say, what we call the Absolute, the universal soul, the Self, is the force by which, from the beginning, all things have been and are and will be manifested. The Atman is the nearest of the near. Therefore, the careless and unsteady mind of man gets no clue of it. The Atman, who you are right now, is the nearest of the near. But the careless and unsteady mind gets no clue of it. But the man who is alert, calm, self-restrained, and discriminating, ignores the external world, and diving more and more into the inner world, realizes the glory of the Atman and becomes great. This longing for freedom. What is longing for freedom? It should be your devotion, your love towards this. Produces the idea of a being who is absolutely free. Let our outer and inner life be one. Let that witness within all of us be free. Let us be one, not two. Let us have one life. Let us get a life. Let us not have two lives. Our outer life and our inner life should be one. When that happens, we'll be free. We'll experience freedom. So we are all invited to struggle, to deal with ourselves, so that we can be free. Thank you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, thou outer world, that outer world is Purna, full of divine consciousness. This inner world is also Purna, full of divine consciousness. From Purna comes Purna. From the fullness of divine consciousness, this world is manifested. Taking Purna from Purna, Purna indeed remains. Because divine consciousness is non-dual and infinite. Om, peace, peace, peace.